Hey.
I should be unmuted now.
Oh, there you go.
Sorry, we use Microsoft Teams for work. We never use Zoom, and like they're all so different from each other.
Well, I think it's easier to record on Zoom, I think.
I think you're right. I think I've heard. Yeah, I think you're right.
So let's see here. You look super cute and like.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so we're doing a couple projects right now, both within Wayne State and with the larger community of Metro Detroit and Metro Detroit, trying to bring some adult students back to university, whether it's Wayne State or elsewhere. So that's why we want to interview some of y'all who've been successful and hear a little bit more about what's worked for you and what hasn't.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I sent you the questions. So let's just get started with the first one. Tell me about your first experience at Wayne State, what worked for you and what didn't, and what led to you leaving the university.
Yeah, so when I first came to Wayne State, it was 2009. I was 17, like right out of high school, like ready to take on the world and go to college. It was gonna be perfect. It was gonna be just like the movies and just like my teachers all told me it was going to be. And I was really grateful that like I had joined an extracurricular. I was a part of Alpha Phi Omega, which is a co-ed fraternity. I was really involved on campus, and it was great. And I had the best time. And then I ended up leaving because my dad got sick, and I was really dependent on my parents to help me out with the financial aid aspect. I had a really hard time navigating financial aid. I think it's really confusing for a lot of people, especially if you're like unaware of the resources that are there, or if you're just too scared to like ask for the help, which when you're younger you tend to be. So I ended up I couldn't make payments. I owed Wayne State money, and ultimately like couldn't return. But my dad was also sick, so that was like a huge factor into that.
Sure. Okay. So what was keeping you busy while you were away from Wayne State? So what were you up to, and what was finally the impetus for you to come back?
Sick parent, number one reason that kept me very, very busy taking care of him up until he did eventually pass away. In between then, because I felt like I couldn't return to Wayne State, I felt like I didn't have any options to like help me to return to Wayne State. I actually was at a community college, and I tried the culinary world for a little bit. I worked on some food trucks. I worked at a country club, worked at a couple of restaurants. So I just tried to do what I could with what I had. And I actually had received an email about the Warrior Way Back program, and I thought, hey, maybe it's worth applying and, just see what it's about. And I was really like surprised with how helpful everybody was. Like the advisors that are a part of the program were very like informative and just helpful and just really encouraging. So I'm like, there's an opportunity here that makes sense for me. Like, why not apply for it? And I was accepted into the program, and that was a huge help. And I figured, why not? Like, I was so close to finishing this degree. Like, why not just go back and finish it, even though I was clearly on a different life path
Sure.
at that point, because about 10 years had lapsed between like when I started Wayne State to when I came back to finish.
And you only had to come back for like 3 semesters, something like that, right?
Yeah, just 2 semesters actually. I came back in January 2019 for the semester, and then I graduated in December 2019. So just 2 semesters. There were no classes for me to take that summer, so it was super quick. I was very fortunate.
Sure. So what did you have any? Was there anything you were worried about when you were coming back, being older?
Yes. The biggest concern was I felt like I didn't know any of the faculty anymore. I didn't know any of the professors. I didn't know the advisors. I sure wouldn't know the students probably at that point. I was an anthropology major, so like I felt like I had known all these anthropology majors. Like I felt like I knew all of them, but they had already finished. long gone on like onto other parts of their career. So coming back, and I did notice that like, yeah, there were quite a few people younger than me. I've always been so used to being one of the younger people in the room, and now I'm like, I'm not. But I also like, I sure wasn't the oldest, and I don't think that matters like anymore with education. Like the more I go through higher education, the more I see that like so many different ages are back in there. Like I built it up to be this huge thing in my head, and then when I got there I was like, oh, like this isn't even a question. Like nobody even cares or notices that like I'm 28 and returning to finish my bachelor's degree. Like I think it bothered me more than it anyone even thought about it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So tell me about your last, so you said you had 2 semesters, that winter and fall. Tell me about how that experience was different than your first experience at Wayne State.
I really was just surprised with how like great all the advisors were, and even the professors. Like I could always set up time to meet with them, even if it was to discuss like, this class isn't, I'm not getting any of it. Like, what am I not understanding? Or talking to my advisors, like, I thought for grad school I wanted to do this, but now that I'm doing, considering this, I don't want to do this. I want to do something else. They were just really available to me, and I don't know if it was like that when I first went, or I just didn't know they could be like that. And having the support from the professors and the advisors, both like my academic and like knowing I could always reach out to the Warrior Way Back advisors on top of that, like having like those people behind you when you're trying to make these decisions, it was just really, really helpful and made it a lot easier to transition back into university, because I had done community college as well as like culinary school, which is very, very different than coming back to a 4-year university and like being in a lecture-based setting. I even did an online class as well when I came back, and that was very, very different. Like having the technology that like locks down your browser and like records you to make sure you can't possibly cheat while taking an exam from home. And it was all a little scary, but like the professors and the advisors were so awesome. It made it really, really easy to come back.
So in that same vein, what would you say to somebody thinking about coming back?
I would tell them to go for it if they're able to, if they're in a better place now than they were, because life happens and it's really hard to like be a student when you're 17, 18. And I don't think people always realize that it's hard to be a student at 17 or 18. To come back, if you're in the place to do it, to just go for it and realize that like there are people there to help you. Like there are resources available, and maybe when you're younger you're just not aware, or it's not as like advertised that like there's people there to help you. But there are advisors, there is the professors, even like everyone's just been so helpful and so welcoming, and I like couldn't be more thankful for the opportunity I was given. And I would love for more people to like be aware of, it's never too late to go back, to try it out, to try something new.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the help is there. You just have to be willing to like to ask for it, because like the professors, I can't like thank them enough for like all the help, even if it's just like career help. They helped me with that stuff, like things you don't normally think of college professors and advisors helping you with. They're there to do that. And if you're gonna come back, just ask for the help, because it's there.
Great, thank you. That was really helpful. I feel like I was listening to them like, oh, that's a good quote. That's a good quote. Let's see, I can stop